You ever stop and wonder if there are secret patterns hiding in plain sight? Like right there in your shopping cart? Well, today, we're going on a kind of data treasure hunt. We're going to uncover some really surprising connections in the most everyday places. Let's dive in.
So, what do biscuits, frozen foods, and fruit all have in common? Now, I know it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, but I promise you, it's not. The connection between these things is real, it's actually incredibly strong, and you better believe businesses are paying very close attention to it.
And the key to unlocking this whole mystery? Well, it's hidden in the science of data mining. We're going to be using this classic textbook as our guide to see exactly how the experts turn these huge mountains of raw shopping data into insights that are actionable and, honestly, sometimes pretty shocking.
Now, this surprising link we're talking about, it's not just some random fluke. It's actually the result of this really powerful technique, and it reveals a much bigger web of connections that data scientists are trying to uncover every single day.
You see, businesses are constantly on this hunt for hidden patterns in how we all shop. It's a field called market basket analysis. The goal is pretty simple, but wow, is it powerful. Find out which items people frequently buy together. Knowing this helps them with everything from how they lay out the store to what ads you see online.
So how in the world do they actually do it? Well, it's not magic, it's a method. There's a really systematic way to sift through millions of transactions to find these little golden nuggets of information, a way to, basically crack the code of our collective shopping behavior.
And the main tool they use is something called an association rule. Just think of it like a simple if-then statement. So for example, if a customer buys a computer, then it's likely they will also buy software. See? It's a rule that suggests a connection between two different items, all based on real data.
Right, but not all of these rules are useful. Some are just noise. To find the ones that are actually meaningful, you've got to measure their strength. And data scientists use two key metrics to do just that. They're called support and confidence.
First up, you've got support. And honestly, this is just a popularity contest. It answers the question, out of all the shopping carts we looked at, how often did both item A and item B show up together? If you have high support, it means that combination is really common. Then there's confidence. This one measures how reliable our if-then rule is. It asks a slightly different question. Okay, of all the times someone bought item A, in how many of those cases did they also buy item B? High confidence means if you see A in the cart, you can be pretty darn sure B is going to be there too.
So, to put it another way, support tells you how often something happens, so you know if it's even worth looking at, and confidence tells you how likely the then part is, so you know if the rule is trustworthy. For a rule to be really valuable, you need both.
Okay, so we have our clues, all those transactions, and we know what we're looking for, rules with high support and confidence. But how do you search through a database with millions of shopping carts? Well, for that, you need a data detective. And one of the most famous ones is called the a priori algorithm.
Now, the a priori algorithm is super clever because it doesn't just check every single possible combination of items. That would literally take forever. It works layer by layer. First, it finds all the individual items that are popular. Then it only uses those popular items to look for popular pairs. And here's the brilliant part, it's called pruning. If it finds out that, say, chips and salsa isn't a popular pair, it knows it doesn't even have to bother checking chips, salsa, and soda. It just cuts that branch off. This one simple trick saves a massive amount of work.
All right, enough with the theory. Let's see what our data detective actually found when we let it loose on a real-world supermarket data set. This is where it gets really interesting.
So here's the setup. We're looking at over 4,600 real shopping trips. We set our minimum support to 15%, which means we're only looking at combinations that show up pretty often. But the key here is the minimum confidence. We set it at a super high 90%. We're not looking for vague hints. We're looking for patterns that are practically a sure thing.
And wow, the results are fascinating. The algorithm found some incredibly strong rules. As you can see, all these different combinations, like biscuits, frozen foods, and fruit, or baking needs, biscuits, and fruit, they all pointed to the exact same outcome. Over and over again, when people bought these things together, they also bought bread and cake. That's the answer to our question from the beginning.
But just how strong is that connection? Well, for the top rule on that list, if a shopper buys biscuits, frozen foods, and fruit, the confidence that they will also buy bread and cake is an absolutely staggering 92%.
Yeah, let that sink in for a second. This isn't a 50-50 shot.
It's not even a slight trend. It is a pattern so reliable that in more than 9 out of 10 times that specific trio shows up in a shopping cart, that specific pair joins them. That is the exact kind of hidden insight that can change an entire business strategy.
And of course, this technique isn't just for groceries. Not at all. The same basic principles are shaping our digital lives every single day, often in ways we don't even realize.
I mean, have you ever seen customers who bought this also bought on Amazon? That's association rule mining. Or when your streaming service says, because you watch this show, you might like this other one. Yep, same principle. It's used everywhere, from designing sales catalogs to making Google search results better.
So what this all really boils down to is pretty profound. When you gather enough data, you can start to see past individual quirks and uncover these powerful, predictable, and often very surprising truths about how we behave as a group. Our shopping carts are basically telling a story, and data mining is the language we're learning to read it with.
Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. From the shows you're recommended to the news you're shown, what other hidden patterns, discovered through data, are quietly shaping your world every single day? It's something to think about.